And now, a story from the Appleseed.
So, I want to tell you my favorite story. It's a story I've carried with me a great part of my adult life, and it's not one of my stories. It's a story I learned from a traditional storyteller from Scotland that a lot of the storytellers knew. His name was Duncan Williamson, and Duncan was one of the traveler people in Scotland. And I met him at the National Storytelling Festival in 1986, and I followed him around like a puppy. And this was the first story I heard him tell, and I ended up visiting Duncan and spend some time with him in Scotland. He was designated a Scottish national treasure, and it was recorded hours and hours of his stories. I visited him. I said, Duncan, how many stories do you know? And he said, 5,500. Now, I think he was just making a number up, but what he was telling me was, I don't even know. And when I told him this was my favorite, he said, oh, that's the traveler story. So I tell it in my way, but this is for Duncan and all the people that are part of this long tradition. You do this for a long time. I've been doing it for really almost 50 years now. I understand that I'm part of something else that came before me and goes on after me. It's called the Happy Man Shirt. Once there was a king who had everything, but he wasn't happy. His wife, the queen, was beautiful and intelligent. He had children, a prince and princess, and they're handsome and beautiful in turn and intelligent. And he had a huge kingdom and a beautiful castle and a stable filled with all sorts of horses. He had everything he could have, he could want, but he wasn't happy. And his wife, the queen, would say, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you happy? He said, I don't know. She said, what can I do? He said, no, it's okay. It's all right. Well, it might have been all right for him, but it wasn't all right for her. And it bothered her. So she went to the wise men. They had this whole stable of wise men. And she asked them one after another, what can I do to make my husband happy? And someone said, well, have a big banquet, and he can see all his friends. Or get him a new horse. Or let's get him a new wardrobe. Or let's put an addition on a castle. Let's send his army out to conquer more land. And one after another, wise men offered all these things. And they just went down the line and they did all those things. And he still wasn't happy. And she said, what's wrong with you? He said, it's okay. It's just the way I am. He wasn't. Nothing seemed to really satisfy him. And finally, she got to the end, the last wise man. It's always the last place you look, I guess. And she said, what can I do? What can I do? And the wise man looked at her and said, if the king would be happy, he must find and wear a happy man's shirt. She said, great. So she called the guard. She said, get in here. She said, I want you to go out in the kingdom. I want you to find a happy man, get a shirt, and bring him back. Bring the shirt back. So they went out in the kingdom, and they scoured the kingdom looking for a happy man. And wouldn't you know, they couldn't seem to find one. They say, are you happy? I say, no. Why not? Oh, I'm poor. I can't make ends meet. Are you happy? No. I have so many things to do. And they came back and they told the queen, and she went back to the wise man. She said, we've looked over the kingdom. We can't find a happy man. And the wise man said, I did not say you. I did not say the guards. I said the king. Only the king can find a happy man and get his shirt. So she goes back to the king and she says, how are you? He said, I'm okay. She said, look, I'm at the end of my rope. And the last wise man, he says, if you want to be happy, you have to go out and you find a happy man. You have to get a shirt and bring him back. Would you do that for me, please? And he said, okay, if it makes you happy, I'll go do it. And he goes the next day. Goes out the back door of the castle. Doesn't go in his robes. Doesn't wear his crown. He doesn't go on his milk white steed. He just goes out in the clothes of an everyday person, like wearing his Carhartts or something. And he begins to look for a happy man. And don't you know, he can't find anyone either. You happy? No. I can barely make ends meet. Are you happy? No. There's so many things. I can't get them all done. And this bothers him. And he stays out the next day and the next day. And he becomes obsessed. He says, I have to find a happy man. And then he begins to worry, is this whole kingdom unhappy because of me? And he won't go back to the castle. He stays out for days and then weeks and even months looking for a happy man. And he can't find him. And his hair grows long and unkempt. His beard grows down. He wears holes in the elbows of his jacket and the knees of his pants, the soles of his shoes. Birds are making their nest in his beard, and he's sleeping out in the open looking for a happy man, and he can't find him. Well, back at the castle, the queen grows lonely. And she calls the guard. She says, I want you to go back out there and find him. Just come bring him back here. I'd rather have him back here and miserable than out there wandering around. So the guards go out to look for the king. And just about that time, the next morning or morning after that, they're looking for him. And the king is in kind of a distant part of the kingdom. And he comes over a ridge and a hill, and he comes down into a valley. And he sees a river, a stream, and he decides he's going to ford, he's going to cross the river. And he looks and he finds this shallow spot. And he's going to cross it, but as he comes up to it, he sees there's a beggar man. The beggar man's sitting on a log right by where he's going to cross over, and he's got a little fire going. His beggar man, he's got this coat that's pulled up over his shoulders. It's a very cool morning, and he's heating up some water in a little tin to make some tea. And Duncan didn't tell me this, but I can only imagine he's singing something like, oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. I got a beautiful... And he sees the king and says, hey, come over here. Get over here. King says, what? He said, get over here right now. Well, no one's ever spoken to the king like that, but he goes over here. The beggar man says, you sit right down, right there. King sits down. He says, I got something for you. It's good for what ails you. You just wait till you have some of this. And he reaches over and he reaches back. He pulls out this little tin cup, and he takes some of the tea that's been boiling on the fire. And he says, you take a sip of that. You're going to love it. And the king takes it and sips it, and it's bitter. But the beggar man smacks him on the back and said, isn't that the best cup of tea you ever had in your whole life? And in spite of himself, the king smiles. So they start to talk, and the king says, who are you? Who am I? Yeah, who are you? Whoa, look at me. I'm a beggar man. That's what I am. I don't care what you call me. Just don't call me down. So the king is talking with this guy. Now he's kind of genuinely interested in what's going on. He's asking about this and this, and the beggar man's talking about all the places he's been. And the king says, maybe I found him. So he turns to the beggar man. He said, I got a question for you. The beggar man says, go ahead, fire away. I'm full of answers. 17, maybe, who knows? Yellow, I don't know. What do you want to ask me? Are you happy? The beggar man said, what? He said, are you happy? Are you a happy man? The beggar man says, well, yeah, I am. You happy? Yeah, I'm the happiest man in the world. King says, well, why are you happy? I never really thought about it. I'll tell you why I'm happy. I didn't get wet. Yeah. It was cloudy last night. I'm like, you are going to be one wet puppy in the morning, but guess what? It didn't rain. I'm dry. You can't always count on that, right? You know, and look, I got something to eat today. I don't have to worry about that. And the sun's shining, and I know the road. He says, yeah. I see what you're after. You're looking at me like I don't have much. But listen, it's true. I don't have much. But, you know, I don't have to worry about whether somebody's going to take it from me or what I should be giving away. I just travel around. I do the best I can. I be as kind as I can to everybody. You tell me, why shouldn't I be happy? The king says, I can't believe I found you. And the beggar man said, well, I didn't know you were looking for me. The king says, I've been looking all over for you. He said, well, here I am. The king says, do you know who I am? And the beggar man looks at him and he said, well, You're a beggar man like me. He says, no, I'm not. And he says, well, that's what you're looking like. And the king says, no, I am the king. And the beggar man looks at the king. He says, you are the king. Yeah, I'm the king. This is all mine. The beggar man says, okay. He says, I don't know what you are, but you're not the king. Yes, I am. No, you're not. Yes, I am. No, you're not. I am the king. No, you're not. I am the king. No. You know why? I'm the king. I'm the king. I'm the king. I'm the king. They're arguing back and forth. And the big man says, we're both kings. And the king says, I am the king, I'm telling you. And the big man starts to laugh. And the king says, what's so funny? And there's tears coming down the big man's face. He says, fella, look at you. You're not the king. And the king sees himself. And he starts to laugh. He says, you're the king. He said, you're the king. They're both kings. And they start to dance around. We're the kings. And they fall down on their knees. They start laughing, and they can't stop laughing. And they're rolling on their sides. They're holding it. We're both kings. And it's a folk tale. That's when the guards show up, right? The guards show up. They come over the hill on their horses. They see the king rolling around on the ground with a beggar man. They throw themselves off their horses and said, Your Majesty, we found you. We found you. And the king said, I told you. And the beggar man said, I didn't know. He said, I'm the king. I said, no. I'm so sorry. I did. Shh. Don't you apologize to me. Don't apologize to me. No, because you reminded me of what happiness is about. No. He said, well, I just didn't know. Shh, stop it. And then the captain of the guards came up and he said, Your Majesty, your wife wants you back. The king said, yeah, well, there's that. And he turns to the beggar man and he says, I gotta go. The beggar man said, yeah, I know, you're the king. And the king says, but I got to ask a favor of you. The beggar man said, a favor of me? Yeah, just one. Well, I don't have much, but whatever I have is yours. The king said, good. I'd like your shirt. And the beggar man said, you want my shirt? The king says, yes, I want your shirt. And the beggar man starts laughing, and then the king starts laughing, and all the guards are laughing. They're not sure why. The king says, what's going on? And the beggar man looks at the king and he pulls open his coat. He says, I have no shirt. And the king laughs and says, then you'll never want for another shirt as long as you live, because I want you to come back and live with me to remind me what happiness is about. And he climbed up on the horse that the guards had brought, and he pulled the beggar man up behind him, and they rode back through the kingdom until they came to the castle, and they came in the front hall of the castle with their arms around each other. And the queen heard some laughing, and she came out in the center hall. She found her husband returned dressed as rags with his arms around a beggar man. She said, you're back. He said, yeah. Found a happy man who doesn't have a shirt. And the beggar man stayed with the king. They did pretty well. Although there was many a meal that was ruined because they would sit at that grand table, the king and the queen at the head of it and just a little bit down, a little ways, the beggar man, and they'd be halfway through the meal. And the king would hear someone say, hey, he'd look up and the beggar man would look at him and go, and the king would start laughing, the beggar man would laugh, and they'd follow, and the queen would say, would you stop it? And they wouldn't. But she decided if that was what was required, it was fine. Now, I want to say one more thing about this story, which is when I heard Duncan tell this all those years ago, almost 40 years ago, I was a young man, and I felt like I had the weight of the world on me, trying to raise a family, trying to make a living as a storyteller, a ridiculous proposition. And I remember thinking, why didn't he just stay out there with the beggar man? But now I'm older, and I understand that what Duncan was saying, what the story is saying, one thing it says is that everybody has a castle that they live in, where we make our world, and we live there. But when we live there, we have to make sure we have room in our hearts, for the beggar man. And that's the story of Happy Man Shirt. I learned from Duncan Williamson.
Thanks for joining us for a story from the Appleseed.